I think the real challenge for us over the last year, I would say, and for some people that's longer, is that funding has been drastically cut across the industry and across the world, partially because of the trickle-down effect of USAID being cut. He said that through every recession, the only organizations that came out on top at the end are the ones that didn't only not cut their communication budget, but that actually doubled the spending that they were putting into marketing, advertising, and communication.
What if an agency turned down the clients most others chase? This week on Next Move with Narendra, meet Âli, founder of Dante Media, a Barcelona agency that works only with organizations making a positive impact. Âli helps mission-driven teams tell the story of their impact. He breaks down why that is so hard, where ESG is heading, and how AI fits in. Watch the full conversation on Next Move with Narendra.
It's been challenging for pretty much every freelancer and every agency that I know, even agencies much bigger than us and much more successful than us, and freelancers that are much more experienced than I am and much more knowledgeable than I am. They've all been struggling a lot in getting to work with the right clients and figuring out what they're doing, because it's very, very difficult right now for everyone, and it's just a phase that the industry and everyone in communication is going through and trying to figure out. But at the end of the day, I guess this too shall pass.
Hello, Ali. Welcome to our show Next Move with Narendra. How are you?
Hey, all good. Yeah, lovely to talk to you.
Thanks for joining our show. And I'm really excited for the conversation today. So why don't you just start with your introduction and what is Dante Media is all about for our audience?
So I'm the founder and director of Dante Media. We are a brand and communication consulting agency that work with organizations creating a positive impact. We work with NGOs, nonprofits, EU institutions, startups, and pretty much any other kind of organization that's looking to communicate their impact. And we help them with their brands, their campaigns, and their strategy. We're a full service agency. We go doing everything from web development to digital advertising, copywriting, design. It's full service, but we really focus on building strategies and systems that can scale and be sustainable primarily.
So I got the information about you, and you lived in so many countries. I even got the list: Istanbul, Amsterdam, Prague, Warsaw, Brussels, and now in Barcelona. So how did that path lead to you to start a communication agency?
Well, I did move around quite a bit, especially during my studies. When I was finishing my master's degree in Belgium, I was working many jobs at once and kind of trying to figure out my career. And just as I was finishing up, I had a job opportunity for a media publication, a kind of well-known European media publication. And I had already been consulting that year for some NGOs to help them with their social media and some other things. And I had another opportunity at hand to potentially consult this organization, and it was kind of unknown hours and unknown amount of work versus a full-time job offer. But I had kind of realized, having worked several corporate jobs up until that point, that I wanted to build something of my own and have a more entrepreneurial journey in terms of my growth. But also on the other hand, I realized working in a lot of these agency environments and corporate environments that I didn't want to wake up every day and make someone else's dreams come true. And I wanted to build towards something that I can be proud of myself, that is building a world that I want to live in. And that is, at the end of the day, when I go to sleep, making me feel good about having made the world a better place and not having been complacent or not having actively made it a worse place. So it was really about realizing and deciding that I want to focus my work on creating a positive impact through the skills that I have and the education that I have, while also having kind of control over the direction I go. So that kind of all came together to form Dante Media, which we started off with a very small team working with SMEs and some EU-funded projects, and we kind of grew from there, really focusing on storytelling around impact and around building things that last and communicating impact for organizations that really are making the world a better place.
Okay. Yeah, that's really the starting point of every entrepreneur who really started their journey, working for their own dreams and having the kind of freedom or their own thing is really a kind of a motivator. And you mentioned Dante Media is only working with the organization's creative, the positive impact, not the commercial clients. Can you tell us why is that? Why to draw that line?
Yeah, it sounds vague to say we work with organizations that make a positive impact, but it's actually not that vague. There are very clear lines. We're also part of several organizations and pledges such as Creators for Climate and Clean Creatives, and those are pledges of our agency to basically say we will not work with fossil fuel clients and we will not work with clients that are making the world a worse place, whether that's destroying the climate or other things. So in the case of Dante Media, we really draw the line of we will not work with fossil fuel clients. We will not work with the pornography industry. We will not work with the weapons industry. It's actually pretty straightforward with those lines. And then when it gets to specific projects, or where there may be gray lines, the question just becomes: is this objectively making the world a better place at the end of the day? Is this creating a positive impact for people, for the public? Is it creating a positive impact for innovation? And is it benefiting communities? Is it benefiting regions? Is it benefiting innovation? It's these questions that we ask, and it's actually not been so difficult so far. We do get approached sometimes by big corporations who would like to collaborate, and then there's also very clear lines there. So that's part of our work with the Creators for Climate. We have pledges to never engage in greenwashing, regardless of the project or whatever. So it's also very clear there that when we work even with a bigger client, a big corporation who wants to maybe talk about their impact, their sustainability, or their social responsibility, we take an active role in steering them in a direction that is not greenwashing or greenwashing, that where we say we will do this project with you to communicate your impact, but we are not going to engage in those areas, and we will draw those lines. And if the corporations want that at the end of the day, then we will tell them we won't be the agency that provides those services. And that's part of our effort to reduce service emissions, which is a concept from a UN report that really is kind of the basis of a lot of the work that Creators for Climate does, where we want to reduce the amount of services provided by agencies or freelancers like us in the industry to help big organizations, the fossil fuel industry, with the whatever industries, in greenwashing, and we're not going to provide those services, and we take a clear stance in not providing those services. So yeah, we when we say we work only with a positive impact, there's a lot behind it, but it's actually not that great of an.
One thing you flagged is really interesting, that impact organizations are really struggling to communicate their own impact. So why is that so hard for them?
Yeah, it's a pattern that we see over and over again. There are many NGOs globally and in Europe that are genuinely moving the needle, that are making a huge impact through their work, that have excellent teams, they have excellent resources, they have really, really in-depth knowledge in those sectors and ecosystems that genuinely no one else has. And these NGOs are very uniquely positioned to be creating an impact in those areas. But what we often see is that they are unable to bridge the gap between the things they do and the impact they make, and the way they're actually able to communicate that impact to their publics. So that's usually not the general public, but that's people in the industry, that's public institutions, governments, the press. They're not as visible as they should be with the impact they're making. And something that we tell them quite often is, communicating your impact, your communication is not just an extension of your organization. It's not like you have your work and then you have your accounting department and your human resources department and your communication department. Communication is not an extension of the things that you're doing that, is just kind of maintained like HR and accounting are. Communication is a quintessential part of your work itself, and communicating your impact is part of the impact that you make. I repeat this a lot, and I really stand behind it, because if you're a NGO that is let's say, supporting marginalized communities in certain region, and you're doing a lot of work. You're actually, starting projects and programs, and you're giving ownership and initiative, and these communities start thriving, and the work starts to grow, and you're doing great with all of it, and you're able to secure a funding, or you get some public funding. But at the end of the day, if you're not able to communicate to your relevant publics the change that has been made and the impact that you made through the work, the way you did the work, the projects, all those details, then it's it comes back to the age old thing of, if it's not on social media, did it even happen? If the tree fell in the forest, did it even fall? Without being able to eloquently communicate the impact that was made, I believe they also run into these walls of not being able to sustain those projects long term, not being able to demonstrate the ROI to their stakeholders, and ultimately it really reduces the long term sustainability of their impact. So I really believe that communicating the impact that you're making is such an important part of their work, and just the act of communicating it and people seeing it, perceiving it, engaging with it is part of that impact that they're making, because it takes it further and it allows other people to come into that world and into those projects, those initiatives, and for them to engage with it, whether that's just liking a post on LinkedIn or realizing that you want to be part of this and to join these projects and so on. I think that's where we really come in, and we do a lot of storytelling. Whatever is fitting to those organizations' needs, we're kind of actively bridging that gap and supporting. They're often very small communication teams in these NGOs, to have a full team behind them, essentially, of designers and copywriters and digital advertisers and website experts and strategists, to really take their work and alleviate some of that work from their very busy schedules, because NGO communication teams are very small usually and underfunded, and we're able to expand their resources and get them to kind of put everything out there. They often have excellent library of resources. They have more knowledge and content in their specific areas than genuinely anyone else does, but they do not have the capacity and resources to properly communicate and do storytelling around those resources to their audiences. And that's where we kind of come in to bridge that gap, because it's such a common and recurring challenge that they face.
Got it. Amazing. And when a new impact organization comes to you, so where do you exactly start the process for their communication?
Well, usually we will meet an organization and we will run a workshop with them. And these workshops are usually 2 to 3 hours, and they really allow us to understand where their main challenges are right now. And the goal of these workshops is we get an idea before the workshop on the general direction that they need help in. They also send us some documentation for background work so that we can prepare everything. And then we do this 2 to 3 hour workshop where we go through specific exercises and specific topics within their communication to better understand where those challenges are and why they're unable to get to where they want to get. And by the end of it, we draw a roadmap that helps bridge the gap between where they are and where they want to get to. And through these workshops, we get a much better understanding of what their challenges are, and therefore how we can help them. And then we can give a proposal to them on the ways that we can help and the things that we can do. We're not a digital agency per se, where clients come and they say, hey, I need this and this and this, and then we produce this and this and hand it to them. We operate a lot more on a consulting level, and we really prioritize what our clients' needs are. And we only do the things that they actually really need. And I'm very particular about this when I talk to new clients or when I talk to NGOs, and I say, we're not after selling you things that you don't need, because we're after building long-term partnerships. And also our reason for existing is we're here to make impact. So we will only advise you on doing the things that are going to move the needle for you, that are going to create an impact.
Yeah, got it. And what are the few things in your experience that makes really a good impact for these organizations?
That really depends on all the things that organizations are struggling with, and where they have those gaps. Some of the more common gaps that I have been seeing are many NGOs have grown faster than their communication was able to catch up and scale with them. And therefore, they are missing some foundational things in their communication. So oftentimes they're missing their messaging and their positioning, and they're missing their verbal identity. They all have logos, colors, and fonts, but they don't have a verbal identity, and they don't really know how they should sound consistently across all their communication and their channels. And additionally, they don't know what they need to say to their audiences about their message. It's not that they don't know what their message is or their mission is or what they're doing. They know these things very well. And often I think they know it too well that they are unable to communicate it in a accessible and simple way without losing nuance to their audiences. And that's really often where we come in to help them untangle the terminology, the lingo, and the language that they have in their very specific industry, and phrase it and put it in a strategic way, in a set of key messages and positioning that can be repeated across the organization by anyone in the organization or anyone in their ecosystem, that will move their mission and their goals forward, because you need consistently phrased and repeated messages in order to really progress with your communication. And we see that to be kind of a very recurring challenge for them that we're able to help with and that we're able to kind of tackle and understand, because we're very experienced in looking at industries and ecosystems and seeing where those frictions are, that they are speaking in a different language than their audiences are able to understand. And that kind of a gap between the two is something that I think we're quite well versed in fixing.
Sounds good. And if we look at the market and if we look at the industry right now, so where do you see ESG and CSR communication heading in 2026?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we do occasionally work with corporations with supporting their sustainability initiatives and their corporate social responsibility initiatives. Obviously, we're a little more careful in how we engage there because we are very focused on the positive impact side of things. And I do believe personally, and this is maybe a bit of a hot take in our industry, that I think it's possible to work with corporations that are otherwise maybe not doing too good for the world, and corporations that we would otherwise not work with as an agency, to help them with their ESG and CSR communication, because we are an agency well positioned to do that in a way without green hushing or greenwashing, as opposed to a lot of the bigger ad agencies that will happily do all of that. And I think there is a gap that needs to be filled in service to missions, where agencies like us and freelancers like us who really believe in these missions need to engage more with corporations around these topics to help them do it right and to help them communicate their impact, truly communicate their impact without greenwashing it. And I think that's a role that I would increasingly like to take more. And I think is a topic that our industry needs to speak about a bit more and have conversations about. Because I think, coming back to your initial question, CSR and ESG are heading in a direction where it's becoming very difficult for them to get more funding internally from their boards and from their investors on why they should invest more into sustainability and social responsibility. Earlier on in the late 20th century and most of the 2000s and 2010s, it's really been about corporations proving to the public that they can do good, and that they do these things that are good on top of the things that they usually do. Whether that's a pharmaceutical company that also supports cancer awareness with NGOs or any other kind of partnership you see these with pretty much every big corporation. Now that's shifting in the 2020s. It's shifting in this direction of, it's no longer about proving whether you are doing something or not. It's about proving whether the things you're doing are actually making a difference and whether you're actually really doing them for moving things forward. So, people already know that all these companies do the CSR and ESG work, and they all do these things that in most of the public's eyes are, things to make them look good. And now it's moving in a direction of companies having to prove to everyone that the things they're doing are making an actual tangible impact that can be seen. And from inside the corporations, the challenge is becoming the big boards and the investors of these huge corporations are saying, okay, we've been investing into ESG and CSR for decades now. And, your ROI on this so far has been building brand equity, that we position our brand to be a brand that cares about cancer awareness, a brand that cares about, poverty, or a brand that cares about whatever. And ultimately, that's no longer enough. And boards and investors are saying, okay, but how is this making us money? Because we keep putting millions and millions into it per year, and brand equity is no longer good enough. We need to see money coming back in from these initiatives. And that's horrible in my opinion, but that's just the way things are. And they're now faced with the challenge of having to prove ROI on social responsibility and sustainability. So now it's moving in a direction of having to build campaigns and having to build initiatives for them that are not only going to build brand equity, but that is also going to show concrete actual ROI, whether that's getting more sales because, say, they're sustainable, or that's getting access to new markets through their NGO partnerships and all these little things that we've been talking to, I think, some of the biggest corporations in the world in the last couple of months about these topics. And the common thread very much is that they're all trying to solve this puzzle of how do we demonstrate ROI beyond brand equity. And yeah, that's something that we've been working with some corporations on resolving and kind of starting to tackle. But I think this is going to be quite a systemic shift in the across the industry in the next couple of years. And now corporations can't just slap on the logo of another NGO on their product and kind of say that they're being sustainable. They really need to do something, and they really need to not only make real impact, but actually show to their internal stakeholders that making that real impact also makes money. And we're really shifting into that green economy mindset of how do we be sustainable? How do we be responsible socially while making money? And I really hope that instead of spiraling further into green hushing, that they're actually able to make an impact and demonstrate that impact and fund that impact and really take the role that big corporations should be taking in the world in making the world a better place actively and not only as an app. Yeah, I've been getting this a lot lately. People have been asking me, where AI fits in this industry, whether AI is taking some of our jobs. And I think within impact or within, the work that NGOs do, and the work that startups do and the work that public institutions do, obviously AI fits in slightly different places. I think within our work, where AI has a really good role to play is to help organizations with small communication teams and little capacity to alleviate a lot of the administrative work that they have to be doing. A lot of the communication work that takes a lot of time and has very little impact. So, for example, we've been building AI brand governance models and systems using large language models, where we're able to create a model that truly understands the brand of an organization. It's not only the visual identity, it's also the verbal identity. And this is a good place for organizations to have a verbal identity in place, because then we're able to train the AI to allow their teams to govern their whole brand very easily, where their stakeholders can easily run their new assets through the LLM to get a compliance check. And a human still checks it, but it just will be more of a double check. And this is really duplicated work across large NGOs. Is they have many stakeholders communicating about them, which means they constantly need to check whether things are brand compliant. And AI plays a great role in alleviating the brand manager role there. And that's already a role that a lot of these organizations don't have the capacity to fund anyway. And another place that I see it potentially being very very helpful and insightful for them is in reporting. Again, we're developing software with some partners to connect with their data dashboards and all of their digital data. And, ideally, they also already have data dashboards that consolidate the data that comes through their different channels like LinkedIn and MailChimp and their website and so on. And we're building these tools that are able to easily pull those into decks for their reporting, because many of these NGOs that are publicly funded are funded by organizations that require very strict and specific reporting. Then the systems that we're building are able to help these teams to easily pull that data and contextualize it for certain periods or certain channels or certain areas that they're planning to demonstrate impact around, and pop it into those decks very easily, where they just need to edit it. Because I've been part of a lot of organizations that would have to drop everything they're doing for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time. These entire communication teams dropping everything they do for almost more than half a month just to do reporting that is required internally. And it takes so much resource, it takes so much capacity, and takes away a lot of their ability to otherwise be making the impact that they're making. So I think reporting and brand governance are really the initial primary areas where AI is taking a a role and a great role and an important role. And then I think it's going to expand into other areas. But I would still also specifically note that whereas AI is great in helping copywriters stay within a tone of voice, it's great in helping organize knowledge. It's great in helping get research for, things that you're building and writing, but it is not drafting strategies. It is not able to have the human and creative touch that is required to understand the nuances involved in complex systems.
Yeah. What is the real challenge in the business right now for you?
I think the real challenge for us over the last year, I would say, and for some people that's longer, is that funding has been drastically cut across the industry and across the world, partially because of the trickle down effect of US aid being cut, partially because of recession caused by, war, conflict, and all those things. And something that I wish I could say to all C-level and senior people, which is the wise words of David Ogilvy, who moved his agency through several recessions in the 20th century. And he said that through every recession, the only organizations that came out on top at the end are the ones that didn't only not cut their communication budget, but that actually doubled the spending that they were putting into marketing, advertising, and communication. And it seems counterintuitive, but when everyone cuts their budgets and when everyone slows down, you start to see a gap of the louder voices in the space, and the people who consolidate those louder voices end up on top once those recessions and challenges ultimately end. So for us, it's really been about getting to work with more NGOs, getting to work in the impact space, and it's been challenging for pretty much every freelancer and every agency that I know, even agencies much bigger than us and much more successful than us, and freelancers that are much more experienced than I am and much more knowledgeable than I am. They've all been struggling a lot in getting to work with the right clients and getting to figuring out what they're doing, because it's very, very difficult right now for everyone, and it's just a phase that the industry and then everyone in communication is going through and trying to figure out. But at the end of the day, I guess this too shall pass.
If I ask you about what is your next move, like where do you want to see Dante Media in next 12 months?
Dante has some fun projects lined up. We're working increasingly with more startups and scale-ups especially. We are supporting a lot of organizations in the philanthropic space and a lot of organizations in the food innovation space, areas that we're quite experienced in supporting some of the biggest organizations in the world, and we're helping others do the same. We are looking to actually continue creating more content. We produce quite a bit of content for an agency. I think we're building quite a large library of content that isn't AI generated and AI slopped. And at the same time, we're continuing to do pro bono projects with organizations that we really believe in, that we think we could help. And we're looking for our next pro bono project right now. So hopefully the next 12 months, Dante is able to work with more NGOs and more scale ups, and primarily some new things we want to do, like I mentioned, will be to work with more corporations and helping with their ESG and corporate social responsibility work. One piece of advice for founders out there, I'm very aware that I'm not one to really preach on to others, so I'm not really a big fan of giving advice as such, but I think I can only speak from my kind of breadth of experience and what I'm trying to navigate through myself, which is to really continue going and really keep pushing and working hard and harder, and make sure that if you really believe in what you're doing, if you really are convinced of your mission, then that is your mission and you stick with it and you move forward with it. And even though sometimes that feels like you're running in a hamster wheel, getting nowhere, no matter how long and how fast you run, you just have to keep running, and you just have to keep believing, and you just have to work harder than you did the day before and keep doing it until the hamster wheel starts moving forward. It's difficult at times. It's difficult to really keep on going when it feels like you're not succeeding or getting anywhere. But I think that's why it's really important to believe in what you do and always do what you believe, that you just keep going even when the going is tough.
And so before we leave, if anyone wants to find you out, where they can check out for you.
If anyone wants to talk to us, you can say hello at Dante.media. You can also email me at âli@dante.media, and you can also reach me on LinkedIn, or you can check our website, dante.media. And yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, thank you, Ali. Thanks for joining our show. You are doing such an amazing job and you shared so many amazing insights. I hope our audience will really find it valuable. Yeah, thanks for joining.
Thank you so much.